An army was closing in, and the sea suddenly opened. The wind howled across the desert. Sand moved like restless waves beneath the feet of thousands of frightened people. Children clung to their parents. Elders struggled to keep walking. And in the distance, a terrible sound echoed across the land. The thunder of chariot wheels. The army of Egypt was coming. For generations, the people of Israel had lived as slaves under the rule of the mighty Pharaoh. They built cities with their hands, carried stones beneath the burning sun, and cried out for freedom. Then one day, a man returned to Egypt. A man who had once been a prince, but now walked with the staff of a shepherd. His name was Moses. Years earlier, Moses had fled Egypt after a terrible mistake. But in the wilderness, something happened that would change history forever. While tending sheep on a quiet mountain, Moses saw a bush burning with fire, yet the leaves were not consumed. From the flames, a voice called out to him. It was the voice of God. God commanded Moses to return to Egypt and demand that Pharaoh release the Israelites from slavery. At first, Moses was afraid. Pharaoh was the most powerful ruler in the world. Who would listen to a wandering shepherd? But Moses obeyed. He walked into Pharaoh's palace and delivered a message that shook the kingdom. "Let my people go." Pharaoh laughed. Why would he release the very people who built his cities and served his empire? But Pharaoh soon learned that this was no ordinary demand. A series of terrifying plagues struck Egypt, rivers turned to blood, swarms of insects filled the air, darkness covered the land, and the people trembled. Still Pharaoh refused. Finally, after the last and most devastating plague, Pharaoh broke. He ordered Moses and the Israelites to leave Egypt immediately. After centuries of slavery, freedom had finally come. Thousands upon thousands of Israelites began their journey into the wilderness. Families packed what little they owned. They walked through the desert with hope rising in their hearts. But freedom did not come easily. Not long after they left, Pharaoh changed his mind. His pride burned hotter than the desert sun. He could not accept losing his slaves. So Pharaoh gathered his army. Hundreds of chariots thundered across the land. The greatest soldiers in Egypt raced through the desert in pursuit. Soon, the Israelites saw the dust rising behind them. Panic spread through the camp. Ahead of them was the vast Red Sea, endless water stretching across the horizon. Behind them, Pharaoh's army. There was nowhere to run. The people cried out to Moses. "Why did you bring us here? Were there no graves in Egypt? Now we will die in this desert." Fear gripped their hearts. But Moses stood calmly before them. He lifted his staff and spoke with a steady voice. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm. Today you will see the salvation of the Lord." Night began to fall across the desert. Then something incredible happened. A powerful wind began to blow across the sea. Stronger and stronger. The waters churned violently as the wind roared across the surface. Suddenly, the sea began to move. The water pulled back. The waves rose higher and higher until they stood like towering walls on both sides. And in the middle, a path appeared. Dry ground stretched across the sea floor. The impossible had happened. God had opened a path through the sea. Moses stepped forward. The Israelites followed. Thousands of people walked between walls of water that rose like mountains on either side. The sound of rushing wind filled the night as they hurried across the seabed. Children stared in awe. Parents held their breath. No one had ever seen anything like this. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's army finally reached the shore. They saw the path through the sea. Blinded by rage, Pharaoh ordered his soldiers forward. Chariots rushed onto the exposed seabed. They chased the Israelites between the towering walls of water. But something began to go wrong. The ground beneath the chariots became unstable. Wheels sank into the mud. Horses stumbled. The soldiers suddenly realized they were trapped in the middle of the sea. Panic spread through the army. They tried to turn back. But it was too late. Across the sea, Moses lifted his staff one more time. The wind stopped. The towering walls of water collapsed. The sea rushed back with overwhelming force. In moments, the waters covered the entire army of Egypt. By morning, the sea was calm once again. On the far shore, the Israelites stood in stunned silence. They had walked through the sea, and survived. The army that had enslaved them for generations was gone. For the first time in centuries, they were truly free. As the sun rose over the horizon, the people celebrated. They sang songs of victory and praise. What had seemed impossible had become reality. And the story of that night would be told for thousands of years. The night when the sea itself made way for freedom. The night when faith triumphed over fear. The night the sea split in two.